Okay, so we are in middle of the first Pirkei of Shemona Prakim. Maybe we'll finish it today. And the past few shiurim we saw that the Rambam seems. I had a conversation today with someone, with a few people. I was giving a shtickle class, and one of the students there asked. So they were talking about certain methods in therapy. So the CBT versus DBT and versus they had like three different methods. Which I'm not an expert, but it was very interesting because I think a lot of these methods are very intuitive and they make a lot of sense. But the key component to all of them is self-awareness, and it's very interesting because before you do anything, so everyone has these gewaldige ideas and ways how to get a person to realize that this is not you, this is that voice talking, and you have to separate it and analyze it. It's all good and nice. But before anything, a person when he's angry and acting out of control has to have the self-awareness to realize, so I don't really feel like this. I'm being angry and I'm being whatever, which is very interesting. And that's sort of the yesod of everything. And I think that's what the Rambam's doing in the first parak is that itself. First, identify who you are, what you're made of, what are the parts of your soul, how does your soul express itself, and what are the various different parts that make up the self, right? So you have a self, you have a soul. Now that soul, you don't have 5 souls, you don't have 3 souls, you have one soul. This soul has, so sort of what I named the shir yesterday is the anatomy of the soul. And now we're mamish going to get into the anatomy. We have 5, the Rambam splits the soul into 5 parts, and what we're going to see today is a breakdown of what they are, what the functions, how the body expresses itself, how the soul expresses itself, the various different functions of the soul, and then once we understand that, and we understand that they're all interconnected, and we could then understand what makes it sick, what makes it healthy, and how to cure, and how to deal with until we fix our machine and reach our tachlis. So, here we are. If you look back in the chat, I think this chat is always saved, so you could really go back to the chat of a few days ago, and you could see so you see this part I didn't even post. Okay, so I'm going to try to get it for you guys. So we are v'ashuv el kavanasenu b'chelkei hanefesh. Give me just 1 second so I can give you this here. I don't know how much of it is going to upload because they always. So let's see. If we finish this, then I'll give you more. It's not letting me. Okay. So I'm just gonna. Still not enough. Okay. So here. So again, let's just give the five faculties of the soul, the 5 parts that make up a person are the nutritive. Nutritive is the most basic. We're going to explain what all these mean in a second. Nutritive, sensitive, appetitive, imaginative, and intellectual. Let's just say. Fine? Okay. So, chelik hazon. Chelik hazon is what is the most basic. This is the nutritive soul. This is memenu hakoyach hamoishech v'hamachzik. So he gives 7 different things that this nutritive soul, the functions, 7 different functions of this nutritive soul. Moishech means attraction. I'm not exactly sure what he means with that. And that, I think, is what brings the nutrition into the body. V'hamachzik. And that's what retains the nutrients. V'ma'akel is the digestive system. V'adoich ha'moiser is the part of the body that gives out all the things that it doesn't need. Hamagadel is what makes it grow. Hamoiled hadoime is the reproductive system. Sort of sounds like the pancreas or something like that. Basically, that takes the various different parts of the body, the different fluids that the body needs, and controls that. So the thyroid, the pancreas, I don't know exactly what. I don't know anatomy b'chlal, but it sounds like one of these things that regulate the body, the hormones or the whatever it is. Okay, so the Rambam basically gave us what he sees as being these 7 different koiches. So the part that brings the nutrients into the body, what retains it, the digestive system, the part of the body that takes care of what needs to, what stays and what goes out, the growth, reproduction, and the balance of the different fluids and Zachen in the body. So, Elu vadvarim al elu hashiva koiches. So again, these are the 7 basic functions. So these are the functions of the nutritive soul, and these 7 koiches, how they operate, with what they operate, which organs they use to do their job. Some of them you can see, some of them you can't see. Some of them do their work all the time. Some of them only work periodically. Fine. This whole science, says the Rambam, the science of this is medicine. Learn medicine, you'll figure it out. Anyway, so you have this basic nutritive soul. This nutritive soul is the digestive system, the reproductive system, the general balance of all different hormones in the body, and anything that has to do with all that. So you would say, now that we understood what this most basic nutritive soul is, that is something that obviously every animal has that, right? They eat, they reproduce, they go to the bathroom, they grow, and they have their hormones that do their checks and balances for them, right? And plant life also has that. Every tree has that. They digest, they take in water, they take in your pollen. Now everyone has allergies now, so there's pollen and they grow, and then they give out the things that they don't need, right? They take in carbon dioxide, give it oxygen. We all know that. So they all have this nutritive soul. So this is something that every living organism in the world has a nutritive soul. Beautiful. 1 out of 5. Hachelik HaMargish is the sensitive soul. I don't mean sensitive by the feeling sensitive. That we're going to see in a minute. When we talk about sensitive, we mean the senses, the 5 senses. Mimenu koiches hachamisha, the famous for some reason everyone knows, everyone heard of the 5 senses: vision, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. The touch is so the other ones each have a miyuchet. You have the nose for the smell, you have the eyes for the vision, you have the ears for the sound, and you have the mouth, the tongue, I guess, whatever it is, for the taste, although it is obviously related to the nose. And then you have touch. Touch is in the entire body. And so that is the sensitive soul. So we got 2 out of 5. First one is nutritive, second one is the sensitive. Now, this soul, the 5 senses, the plant maybe don't, maybe do. I don't know. It's like quasi-science. I don't know what the scientists really have to say about this today. These are things that develop, and it's an interesting area to follow. But definitely, man shares this with every animal. Every animal sees, hears, smells, tastes, and touches. So we're going up a step, right? So this is already more refined, and this is step 2. Chelik HaMedama. Chelik HaMedama is the imagination. This is the imaginative soul. What is the imagination? Hu hakoyach asher yizker rishume hamuchshem acher olam merkevas hachushim hasesigim. It's very interesting the way the Rambam describes imagination, and I'll just say it and then we'll read it inside. The Rambam describes imagination as two main functions. First of all, whatever you experienced with your 5 senses, so you experienced touch, you experienced smell. Now, imagination is that afterwards that you don't have that sensation anymore. So you had that sensation, you don't have that sensation anymore. Now you can think about it and you can replay it in your mind. Now that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world. It exists in your imagination. It's memory. So not every memory is in the imaginative soul. The imaginative soul is when you visualize and you sort of imagine, right? So through your memory, you bring up a smell or a taste or something you touched, and you think about it, you fantasize about it, you make it alive in your mind. That is the imaginative, because you're taking something that doesn't exist and you're imagining. Now, the way you have that is because you have that information stored in your memory. Okay, so function number 1 is that whatever you experienced with these 5 senses, you can later bring up again in your mind, and that's an imaginative soul. The second thing is you can take different things, you could just play around with reality, right? You could create an alternative reality in your imaginative soul. So you know that certain things have certain qualities and certain things have different qualities. And in reality, you can't put them together. So in your logical mind, you won't be able to put them together because logically they don't work together, right? You can have a what?
Wooden liquid.
A wooden liquid, exactly. A solid, a sort of, right? So solid and liquid is ice. So that was pretty fast. But you can have, you could, in your mind you could create retarded, crazy things. And that is a quality unique to imagination because you can take a quality that a person has. Let's say he could talk and make a tumble sauce, and he can have a boat with eyes and a nose making a tumble sauce. Right? That you could only have that in imagination because you took quality from that, a quality from that, and you put them two together. And the Rambam has the Rambam has a very fundamental machloikis with the Kalam, which are a group of thinkers, Muslim Christian thinkers, that he just has to put in here, even though it doesn't really come in. The place where the Rambam discusses this and then that has to do, it's extremely fundamental because it has to do with Hashgacha Pratis. It's a very far-reaching, has a lot of very far-reaching ramifications, even though it seems to be a very basic machlokes, and that is there such a thing? Is everything that I can imagine logically possible? So the Rambam, here he says, absolutely not. The koich of imagination is dafka that. The koich of imagination is, I can have a walking boat with a big nose and, and it could be a million things at the same time. And even though that's not shaykh b'mitzias. And the fact that I can imagine it does not mean that it has to be possible. Because the unique quality of imagination is that I have the power to invent things that don't exist. I can take qualities from a whole bunch of different things, mix them together and create a new thing. So again, the imagination has two things. First of all, things that I've experienced with my five senses. I can bring them up again in my imaginative mind. And I could think about it and I could experience a certain pleasure, I could, whatever it is. They could live again in my mind. Very, very important quality, the imagination. The Rambam does not go into it over here. It's important for Nevuah. It's important for remembering Yitzis Mitzrayim. The Kuzri says the reason why the power of the koich of imagination is so strong is because we have to think that we were by Mountain Torah. So these are things that we could read about and we could create images in our mind, even though we weren't personally there. But these are all within the soul. Within the power of imagination. So let's see this Rambam on imagination inside. After you sensed whatever you did with your sensitive soul, so now you can think about it, and not only you could bring it up again and think about it and imagine it and make it alive in your mind, you could also you could take qualities from some of them and just fuse them together. You can take from things that you did experience and you did grasp, you can apply these to things that don't exist at all. Okay. You can imagine a giant metal boat flying. You call that an airplane. So today that's a terrible mashal, but in his days this was a very reasonable thing, right? You can't imagine something flying in the air. And the person that reaches from the heaven to the earth, and an animal that has 1,000 eyes, and all these things that can't possibly be. So your dimyon, your imagination, could put these things together just because it could. That is the unique quality of imagination, that it can put things that don't necessarily exist. And the fact that I came up with this crazy idea doesn't mean that it could possibly exist. What is he coming to? Okay? The kanto medabrim. The medabrim are the mit kalamun, the kalam. And they made a terrible, horrible mistake. And on this foundation, they with making this fundamental mistake, their entire perspective of how they read reality is wrong. So sometimes someone can make one mistake, a logical mistake, and this mistake has great reaching ramifications. And because the Kalam said, what did they say? Shahim chashvu, maybe they didn't even think it, they just told people, something you can imagine could possibly exist. And this is wrong, it's not true. Your mind can come up with things that don't exist, and they don't have to, because you came up with an animal with 1,000 eyes, it doesn't mean that such a thing could exist. Now, why is it so important, what they say and what he says, is because this involves a question of how Hashem runs the world. And it doesn't really come in here. The Rambam just brought it up, so that's why we have to address it. And the question is there a certain system in Teva that works on autopilot, and that system, and that system, the Chukei HaTeva, so the Rambam believes that there are certain rules in place, and these rules exist, and the entire nature works on these rules. Now, so when I do something, when I paint, when I dye a cloth, and the reason why this cloth just became whatever color it became is because I took dye, and they have certain chemical components, and that went onto the cloth, and that's how it works, and that's why it happened. The Kalam say no, there's no such thing. Nothing ever works, and nothing works for the reasons you think. They all work because Hashem was geyser that this cloth should become red and this cloth should become blue, and there's no cause and effect at all. There's no such thing. There's no such thing teva almost. That's what they say. There's no such thing as nature, and everything is b'gzeres Hashem, and Hashem is involved in every single cloth that anyone ever dyed and painted, and He was geyser that should be red and that should be blue, and if He wouldn't, then nothing would have happened. And this is, and technically, there doesn't have to be there are no laws of nature, and therefore anything you could possibly think of is possible. Because if Hashem would want that should be, then that should be kitzur. This is a tremendous machlokes. Again, this is not the sugya, but I'm just bringing up why such a small mistake of if things that I could possibly imagine, does that mean that it could exist? The Rambam says absolutely not, no shaykhis. So now let's get back because we did 3 out of 5, and I would really like to cover all 5. Okay. So, what are the 3 that we saw? The nutritive soul is basic. Anything in nature has that. Then we had the sensitive soul, the 5 senses. Then we had the imaginative soul, and that is to take whatever I experience with my senses, mix. Sometimes you don't have to mix them, just re-experience them again, right? You had good food, and now you just want to close your eyes and experience that taste, experience the texture, right? So, and the smell, you have almost all 5 senses in good food, right? When you think about good food, and you close your eyes, you have all 5 senses are involved in that, right? You have touch, you have smell, you have taste, you have what are the other 5? Sight, sound. You don't have, right? The truth is, like, you hear yourself moaning. Well, you think so. Maybe you have. Anyway, so you have. So that is the function of imagination, and then you have that sandwich talking to you. That's already the second quality that he's talking about, and that is mixing and taking all those qualities and mixing them together. Now, chelik ha'mas'orer. Chelik ha'mas'orer is the appetite of soul. What is that? That is when a person wants something, he craves something, and he desires. Okay, so or he's repulsed by it. His wants, then he runs away, and he chooses. So the choices people make in life are in this place. This is the place where a person has the want, the hate, the disgust, the obsession, the craving. This is that element. Now, what the Rambam is going to say, this is where a person's bravery is, a person's achzorius, a person's rachmanis. This is the feelings, right? You go into the whole Indian. You could call it the feeling soul. This is how a person feels. So a person wants certain things, he hates certain things, he's angry, he's sad, he's empathetic, he's a achzer. All these things take place, and that soul of feeling and love and hate and all these emotional feelings. So this is the emotional feeling soul. And the entire body, says the Rambam, just like you have a koyach, just like your koyach in your which soul would that be? In the sensitive soul, right? So you have the sense of touch, but the sense of touch uses your hand as an instrument to touch, right? So you have a sense of smell, and your sense of smell in you, right? So you have in your brain, we know. So you have all these koiches in your brain. Let's just put it for now's sake in the brain. So you have all these koiches within you. Now, what instruments your body uses your nose to smell and your mouth to taste and anything to touch, really. So these are all instruments, right? In that way, the entire body, all its functions, and even the sensitive soul, they are all there to facilitate the wants and desires of a person, right? So this appetite of soul uses the entire body and all its imagination and its sensitivity and its growth. It really doesn't have. It can manipulate only through a different step, and that we'll see later. But so this appetite of soul, right? So when we're talking about appetite, we're talking about the emotional soul. That's probably a better word. The emotional soul uses the entire body and all its faculties to do its wishes. So when I want So when I have an appetite for good food, so I can fantasize about that because my appetite of soul is using my imagination, and then it's using my taste and touch to go make that sandwich and pick it up and eat it, and then it's using, so it all three beyond that are all tools and instruments that the appetite of soul uses. So the appetite of soul uses the entire body. He's sort of giving out all he dictates the Seder Hayom. So, and he uses everyone else services him, and he operates through all of them. And we're going to have to stop here. And obviously all these things are so fundamentally important, just like I started off. So we have self-awareness. And we know that the way I feel like this, I want this, so I can identify who is talking, what do they want, why do they want that? Maybe it's not good for me, so why do they want that? And if they want that, what is that a result of? Because everything is interconnected. So, and how do I fix it? So all these things are extremely important, interconnected, whatever, and we'll see tomorrow. We'll finish Pirkei from Mitzvah.